The evening started like any other at Bellini's restaurant, an upscale dining establishment nestled in the heart of downtown. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over white tablecloths and polished silverware as the usual Friday night crowd began to fill the space. The soft murmur of conversation mixed with the gentle clink of glasses, creating that perfect restaurant ambiance that the owner, Mr. Rossi, had spent years perfecting. Among the busy servers moving through the dining area was Lily Chen, a woman in her late 20s with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. She'd been working at Bellini's for almost 3 years now, longer than most of the waitstaff who typically moved on after a few months. There was something about the way she carried herself, a quiet dignity despite the demanding nature of her job that made her stand out, though most guests never noticed. "Table 7 needs more bread," called out Miguel from behind the bar, "and 12 is getting impatient about their wine." Lily nodded, balancing a tray loaded with appetizers for another table. "Got it. I'll take care of 12 first." The restaurant was particularly busy tonight. A tech company was hosting a dinner for some visiting executives, the type of customers Mr. Rossi loved because they ordered expensive wines and left generous tips, but the type that made servers nervous because they could be demanding and sometimes difficult to please. As Lily approached table 12 with their bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, she couldn't help but notice the group of 6 well-dressed people at the large round table. They exuded confidence and wealth, designer watches glinted on wrists, and conversation flowed easily about vacation homes and private schools. This was the tech company group that had reserved half the restaurant for the evening. "Your wine, sir," she said to the man who had ordered, a middle-aged executive with salt and pepper hair and an expensive suit. He barely acknowledged her as she began to open the bottle, continuing his story about a recent golf trip. Lily worked quietly and efficiently, presenting the cork and pouring a small amount for him to taste. The man took a distracted sip and waved his hand dismissively, indicating she should fill the glasses. As she carefully poured for each person at the table, she listened to fragments of their conversation. "The new office in Singapore is going to change everything for the Asia market," said a woman with a sharp bob haircut and calculating eyes. "Only if we can get the right team in place," countered another man. "The talent pool there is competitive." Lily moved around the table, careful not to interrupt. Years of serving had taught her the art of being present without being noticed, of anticipating needs before they were voiced. It was a skill she had perfected, though not one she had ever imagined would define her working life. "Will there be anything else for now?" she asked when she had finished pouring. "We'll need another bottle soon," the first man said without looking at her. "And where are our appetizers? We ordered 20 minutes ago." "I'll check on those right away," Lily promised, moving quickly back toward the kitchen. The evening continued at its hectic pace. Lily moved between her tables, delivering food, refilling drinks, clearing plates. Every now and then she would glance toward the tech company table, making sure they had everything they needed. They were growing louder as they consumed more wine, their laughter occasionally rising above the general restaurant noise. It happened during her 8th trip to their table. Lily was carrying a tray with their second course, pan-seared scallops for 2 of them, the house special risotto for others, and a perfectly cooked steak for the man who had ordered the wine. The tray was heavy but manageable. She had carried heavier hundreds of times before. But as she approached the table, one of the executives pushed his chair back suddenly, directly into her path. Lily tried to sidestep, but another server was passing behind her with water pitchers. For a split second, she lost her balance, tipping slightly to one side. She recovered almost instantly, steadying the tray with practiced hands. Nothing fell. Nothing spilled. It was the kind of near miss that happened in busy restaurants every night, the kind that experienced servers handled so smoothly most customers never noticed. But the tech executives noticed. "Whoa there," said the man who had moved his chair. "Careful with our dinner." A woman at the table laughed, the sound sharp and unkind. "Maybe they should hire servers who can actually walk and carry things at the same time, right? How hard can it be?" Another chimed in. Lily felt heat rise to her cheeks as she carefully set down each dish, matching them to the correct diner. She kept her expression neutral, a skill learned through years of customer service. "Can I get you anything else?" she asked, her voice steady despite the burning embarrassment. "Just try not to drop anything else," said the woman with the sharp bob, though nothing had been dropped. The table erupted in laughter again, as if this were the wittiest comment they'd heard all evening. Lily nodded and stepped away, maintaining her composure until she reached the kitchen. Once through the swinging doors, she took a deep breath, closing her eyes briefly. "You okay?" asked Angelo, one of the line cooks who had witnessed the exchange through the service window. "Fine," Lily said, forcing a smile. "Just the usual Friday night fun." "Those corporate types," Angelo shook his head. "They forget what it's like to work for a living." Lily shrugged. "It's part of the job." She picked up another tray for a different table and headed back out. Throughout the next hour, the tech table continued their subtle mockery whenever Lily approached. They would fall suddenly silent, then burst into laughter after she left. One man mimicked her walk when he thought she wasn't looking. Another made a show of clutching his plate protectively when she cleared the table. It was childish behavior from adults who should know better, but Lily had experienced worse. She continued to serve them with professional courtesy, never letting her smile slip, never showing how their words affected her. Mr. Rossi, who prided himself on running a classy establishment, noticed what was happening. During a quiet moment, he approached Lily by the service station. "I can ask Pietro to take over that table," he offered in a low voice. Lily shook her head. "It's fine. They're almost finished with dinner anyway." She appreciated the gesture, but switching servers now would only draw more attention to the situation. As the evening progressed, more diners filled Bellini's. Among the new arrivals was an elderly couple who requested a table near the grand piano that stood in the corner of the dining room. The piano was a beautiful instrument, a glossy black Steinway that had been Mr. Rossi's pride and joy when he opened the restaurant 15 years ago. Most nights, a pianist played soft dinner, music from 7 until 10, but tonight the usual musician had called in sick. The piano sat silent, its bench empty, the polished surface reflecting the chandelier light. Lily noticed the elderly gentleman looking at the piano with disappointment as she brought them their menus. "I was hoping to hear some music tonight," he told her. "My wife and I came for our anniversary. The pianist was wonderful last year." "I'm so sorry," Lily said genuinely. "Our regular pianist couldn't make it tonight, but congratulations on your anniversary. Can I bring you a complimentary glass of champagne to celebrate?" The couple smiled at her kindness, and Lily felt a small sense of satisfaction. This was why she stayed in this job despite moments like she'd experienced with the tech table. Genuine human connections, the opportunity to make someone's special evening a little brighter. As she moved back toward the kitchen, she heard more laughter from the tech executives. They were on dessert now, and apparently the wine had further loosened their sense of propriety. One of them was doing an exaggerated impression of her serving style, pretending to stumble dramatically while the others roared with laughter. Lily kept her eyes forward, pretending not to notice. In the kitchen, she focused on arranging dessert, forks on a tray controlling her breathing, reminding herself that she needed this job. What none of them knew, not the mocking executives, not Mr. Rossi, not even her fellow servers, was that Lily had another life beyond these walls. A life where she wasn't just someone to be overlooked or mocked. A life where her hands did much more than carry trays and fold napkins. As the night wore on and the tech table grew rowdier, Mr. Rossi approached them about the noise level. Lily overheard their conversation as she cleared a nearby table. "Since your pianist is a no-show," said the man with salt and pepper hair, gesturing toward the empty piano, "maybe the entertainment could be watching your servers try to walk and carry at the same time." More laughter followed. Mr. Rossi's smile became fixed. "I apologize about the pianist. Perhaps you'd like to see our dessert menu?" The man waved his hand dismissively. "We've already ordered. But seriously, no music tonight? Isn't that part of the Bellini's experience you charge so much for?" Lily turned away, continuing her work. unaware that the night was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would transform not just this evening, but perhaps her entire future. Mr. Rossi's face showed a hint of concern as he glanced from the rowdy tech table to the empty piano in the corner. The absence of music had been mentioned by several guests throughout the evening, and the restaurant's atmosphere wasn't quite what it should be. He caught Lily's eye and motioned her over to the service station. "Everything okay?" Lily asked, noting the worry lines creasing his forehead. "Just this piano situation," he sighed, lowering his voice. "Antonio's sick and I've called everyone I can think of. No luck finding a replacement on such short notice." Lily nodded sympathetically. Antonio had been Bellini's pianist for over 5 years. His gentle playing added just the right touch to the dining experience, present enough to create ambiance but subtle enough to allow conversation. "I'm sorry," she said, genuinely feeling for her boss. Mr. Rossi took such pride in every detail of his restaurant. "Is there anything I can do?" He shook his head. "Just keep those executives happy if you can. They're big spenders and the company books regular events here." He patted her shoulder. "And don't let them get to you. Some people just forget their manners after a few drinks." Lily smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry about me. I've dealt with worse." And she had. Much worse, in fact. The path that had led her to this restaurant had been far from easy or straightforward. As she returned to her duties, Lily's mind drifted momentarily to her small apartment across town. In the corner of her living room stood an upright piano. Not a grand Steinway like the one at Bellini's, but a well-loved instrument that had seen her through the hardest times of her life. Few people knew that Lily had once been a promising, young pianist. She had started lessons at age 6, showing unusual talent almost immediately. By 16, she had performed with regional orchestras and won several competitions. Her future in music had seemed assured, until life intervened. Her mother had fallen ill during her first year at the prestigious Eastman School of Music. The medical bills piled up quickly, forcing Lily to make an impossible choice between her education and her family. She had withdrawn from school, moved home to care for her mother, and taken whatever jobs she could find. Waiting tables paid better than most accessible options, especially with tips. So for the past 7 years, Lily had carried trays instead of playing concertos, had memorized specials instead of sonatas. But she had never stopped playing. Every morning before her shifts, her fingers still danced across the keys of her old piano, keeping her technique sharp, her passion alive. None of that history was visible to the executives who continued to snicker whenever she approached their table. They saw only what they expected to see, just another server, someone easily dismissed, easily mocked. "Hey, piano girl," one of them called out as she passed by with water refills for another table. It was the woman with the sharp bob haircut, her speech slightly slurred now. "Since there's no music tonight, why don't you entertain us some other way?" Lily turned, professional smile firmly in place. "Is there something I can get for you?" "Yeah," said the salt and pepper-haired man. "Some actual service without the circus act." Their table erupted in laughter again. Lily noticed other diners glancing over with uncomfortable expressions. This group was becoming disruptive. "I'd be happy to bring you anything you need," Lily said evenly. "Coffee, perhaps? Or would you like to see the dessert menu again?" The woman waved her hand dismissively. "Just don't trip on your way back." Lily nodded and continued to her original destination. Her cheeks burned, but she held her composure. 7 years of customer service had taught her that responding to rudeness only escalated situations. Better to remain professional and move on. As she refilled water glasses for an elderly couple celebrating their anniversary, she noticed the husband looking sympathetically at her. "Don't let them bother you, dear," the woman said softly. "Some people forget what kindness looks like." Lily smiled genuinely. "Thank you. And how is your anniversary dinner going? Can I bring you anything else?" "Everything is wonderful," the man said. "Though we were looking forward to the piano music, we came here last year and it made our evening special." "I remember," Lily said. "Mr. Rossi mentioned you were returning." I'm sorry about the music. Our regular pianist is ill tonight. The woman sighed. That's a shame. Music makes everything better, don't you think? I do, Lily agreed, feeling a familiar pang in her chest, more than most people know. As she headed back toward the kitchen, Lily passed the silent piano. Her fingers itched with muscle memory. How many hours had she spent at keyboards just like this one? Thousands, probably. Despite everything, music had remained her constant companion, her true voice. In the kitchen, Angelo was plating desserts with artistic flair. Those tech people still giving you trouble? He asked. Nothing I can't handle, Lily assured him, loading coffee cups onto a tray. Rich people, Angelo muttered, carefully positioning a mint leaf on a chocolate mousse. They think money buys them the right to treat people however they want. Lily shrugged. Most customers are nice. You just remember the difficult ones. That's because you always see the good in people, Angelo said with a grin. Me? I just see who they really are when they think no one important is watching. Back in the dining room, the atmosphere had shifted slightly. The tech executives were now loud enough that other diners were sending annoyed glances their way. Mr. Rossi hovered nearby, clearly considering whether to intervene. The salt and pepper-haired man was standing now, gesturing with his wine glass, as he told a story. So I told him either increase our budget or find another development team. His voice carried across the restaurant. You should have seen his face. As Lily approached with desserts for another table, the man turned suddenly, bumping into her. This time, despite her best efforts, one of the chocolate mousses slid from its precarious position on the tray, landing with a soft splat on the expensive carpet. The table fell silent for a moment, then erupted in exaggerated laughter. See? The bob-haired woman crowed. I told you. Can't walk and carry at the same time. The man looked down at the spilled dessert, then at Lily. Hope that doesn't come out of your tip, he said with mock concern that barely masked his amusement, at her expense. Lily calmly set down the remaining desserts at their intended table, then retrieved a cloth from her apron to clean up the spill. Her movements were methodical, practiced. This wasn't the first time she'd cleaned up a mess that wasn't entirely her fault, and it wouldn't be the last. Mr. Rossi appeared at her side with a small dustpan. I'll take care of this, he said quietly. Why don't you take a 5-minute break? They've had too much to drink. Lily nodded gratefully and headed toward the back of the restaurant. As she passed the piano again, she paused. Without thinking, she reached out and touched the polished wood. The instrument had been silent all evening, its potential for beauty untapped, much like her own talents. In the employee break room, Lily sat alone, taking deep breaths. She wasn't upset about the spill. Such things happened in restaurants all the time. What weighed on her was something deeper, a question she'd been asking herself more frequently lately. Was this all there would ever be? She thought about her mother, now recovered and living independently again. She thought about the music school scholarship she'd abandoned, the career she'd put on hold. She thought about the hours she still spent playing piano in her apartment, performing for no audience except herself and occasionally her neighbor's cat, who wandered in through the open window. Lily? It was Pietro, another server. Mr. Rossi's looking for you. Something about the elderly couple at table 9. She quickly stood, straightened her uniform, and headed back into the dining room. Had something gone wrong with their anniversary? Dinner? The elderly couple smiled when they saw her approach. There she is, the woman said warmly. Is everything all right? Lily asked. We were just telling Mr. Rossi how disappointed we were about the music, the husband explained. It's become a tradition for us, you see. Our first date was at a piano bar many years ago. I understand, Lily said sympathetically. I wish there was something I could do. Mr. Rossi was looking at her with an odd expression. Lily, didn't you mention once that you played piano? Her heart skipped a beat. She had told him briefly, during her job interview 3 years ago when he'd asked about her background. She'd mentioned studying music in college, but not the extent of her training or her past achievements. It had seemed irrelevant to serving tables. Yes, I play a little, she said hesitantly. The elderly woman brightened. Oh, perhaps you could play something for us? Just one song for our anniversary? Mr. Rossi looked hopeful. Antonio isn't coming in and the restaurant doesn't feel right without music. Would you consider it? Just for a few minutes? I'd compensate you, of course. Lily glanced around the restaurant, at the diners enjoying their meals, at the tech table, still laughing loudly, at the beautiful Steinway sitting silent in the corner. Something stirred inside her, a mixture of longing and fear. It had been years since she'd played for an audience. Her fingers were still skilled from her daily practice, but performing was different. It required a vulnerability she wasn't sure she was ready to show, especially with the mocking executives just feet away. I don't know, she began uncertainly. The elderly woman reached out and patted her hand. Music is meant to be shared, dear. Don't keep your gifts hidden away. In that moment, staring into the kind eyes of this woman who had no idea of her history or her struggles, Lily felt something shift inside her. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe it was time to remember who she had been, who she still was, beneath the server's uniform. Lily stood frozen beside the elderly couple's table, her mind racing. The thought of sitting at that grand piano, in her server's uniform, with all these people watching, including those executives who had spent the evening mocking her, made her stomach tighten with anxiety. I don't know, Mr. Rossi, she said hesitantly. It's been a while since I've played in public. The restaurant owner's kind eyes crinkled at the corners. Just consider it, please. Antonio won't be back until next week and our guests miss the music. He glanced meaningfully at the elderly couple. The woman reached out and patted Lily's hand again. No pressure, dear. But sometimes life gives us little nudges when we need them most. Before Lily could respond, a loud crash came from across the restaurant. At the tech executive's table, someone had knocked over a wine glass. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth like spilled blood. Whoops! It was the woman with the sharp bob, her voice carrying across the restaurant. Maybe I need waitressing lessons too. More laughter erupted from the table. Lily felt her cheeks grow warm again, but this time with something closer to anger than embarrassment. These people had been making her the butt of their jokes all night, and now they were disrupting everyone's evening. Mr. Rossi's expression darkened. Excuse me, he said, moving toward the noisy table with purpose in his step. Lily turned back to the elderly couple. I'll think about it, she promised, then hurried away to help clean up the spilled wine. As she approached the tech table with fresh napkins, she could hear Mr. Rossi speaking in the firm but polite tone he reserved for difficult situations. Glad you're enjoying yourselves, he was saying, but I must ask you to be mindful of our other guests. We pride ourselves on providing a pleasant atmosphere for everyone. The salt-and-pepper-haired man waved dismissively. We're just having a good time, and spending good money to do it. He looked around at his companions. Right, team? Several nodded, though a couple looked slightly embarrassed by their group's behavior. Mr. Rossi maintained his professional smile. Of course, and we appreciate your business. I simply ask for a bit more discretion. What we'd appreciate, the man continued as if Mr. Rossi hadn't spoken, is the full Bellini's experience we were promised. Your website mentions live piano music nightly. Yet here we are, paying premium prices for an incomplete experience. He gestured toward the empty piano. Lily began sopping up the spilled wine, keeping her head down but listening intently. Mr. Rossi's smile tightened. As I explained earlier, our regular pianist is ill tonight. These things happen occasionally, even in the best establishments. Perhaps I can offer complimentary dessert wine to make up for the inconvenience? The bob-haired woman snorted. Because more wine is exactly what this table needs. One of the other executives, a quieter man who had been checking his phone most of the evening, looked up. It's fine, really. The food's been excellent. But the salt-and-pepper-haired man wasn't ready to let it go. You know what would make up for it? Some entertainment. His gaze shifted to Lily, who was still cleaning up the spilled wine. Maybe our friend here could put on a show. I bet she's got hidden talents. The way he said it made it clear he was mocking her again. Mr. Rossi stiffened. I think, actually, came a voice from behind them. She does. Lily turned to see Angelo standing there with a fresh tablecloth draped over his arm. His dark eyes flashed with something protective and fierce. Lily studied at Eastman School of Music, Angelo continued. One of the best music programs in the country. She could probably play circles around anyone in this room. Lily felt her breath catch in her throat. How did Angelo know that? She'd never told him about Eastman specifically. Had Mr. Rossi mentioned it? The executives looked between Angelo and Lily with expressions ranging from skepticism to amusement. Is that so? Asked the bob-haired woman, eyebrows raised. Our waitress is secretly a concert pianist? I didn't say that, Angelo replied calmly, but she knows her way around a keyboard better than most. The salt-and-pepper-haired man leaned back in his chair, swirling what remained of his wine. His eyes held a challenging glint. Well then, why don't you play something for us? Show us what you've got. He gestured grandly toward the piano. Mr. Rossi stepped in quickly. That's not necessary. Lily is here to serve, not perform. But the idea had caught fire at the table. Yes, let's hear her play, said another executive. If she's so talented, why not? Come on, urged the bob-haired woman. Just one song. Lily stood frozen, clutching wine-soaked napkins, feeling trapped in this unexpected spotlight. Part of her wanted to run to the back room and hide until these people left. But another part, a part she had suppressed for years, stirred with something like longing. The elderly couple had turned in their seats, watching the scene unfold with interest. The woman caught Lily's eye and gave her an encouraging smile. You don't have to do this, Mr. Rossi said quietly to Lily. They've had too much to drink. I can ask them to leave if they continue to be disruptive. Lily looked around the restaurant. Other diners were watching curiously now, the evening's entertainment, shifting from their meals to this unusual drama playing out before them. The quiet that had fallen over the room made the absence of music even more noticeable. She thought about her tiny apartment, about the hours spent playing alone, about the dreams she had set aside but never fully abandoned. She thought about the mockery she had endured all evening from people who saw her as nothing more than a server, someone beneath their notice except as an object of ridicule. Something resolved within her. It's okay, she told Mr. Rossi. I'll play one song. She set down the soiled napkins, straightened her back, and walked toward the piano. The restaurant fell completely silent as she moved, every eye following her progress. The weight of attention pressed against her, making each step feel heavier than the last. The Steinway waited, its polished surface reflecting the soft lighting of the restaurant. Lily approached it the way one might approach an old friend, with reverence and a touch of nervousness. How long had it been since she'd played an instrument of this quality? Years, certainly. She adjusted the bench, a simple action that felt deeply familiar. For a moment she was transported back to recital halls and practice rooms, to a life that seemed to belong to someone else now. From the tech table came a stage whisper, "This should be good." More snickering followed. Lily placed her hands on the keys, feeling their cool smoothness beneath her fingertips. She closed her eyes briefly, letting the world narrow to just this moment. Just this instrument. What should she play? Something flashy to impress them? Something technically difficult to prove Angelo's words? No. She would play what she felt, what had been building inside her all evening, all these years, perhaps. Her fingers began to move, and the opening notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune floated into the room. She started softly, tentatively, like someone testing unfamiliar waters, but within moments, muscle memory took over. Her hands remembered what her conscious mind had pushed aside. The gentle, dreamlike melody spread through the restaurant like ripples on a pond. Lily felt her breathing slow, her shoulders relax. This was her element, the place where she had always felt most herself. As the piece progressed, she forgot about the executives, about the spilled wine, about her server's uniform. She forgot about everything except the music flowing through her fingers and into the air around her. When she reached the middle section where the composition builds in both volume and complexity, she didn't hold back. Her hands moved with growing confidence, coaxing both power and delicacy from the magnificent instrument. The piano responded to her touch as if it had been waiting for her all along. The room had gone completely still. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the kitchen staff had paused their work, standing in the doorway to listen. Lily didn't see the expressions changing on the faces of the tech executives, the mockery fading, replaced by surprise and then something like awe. She didn't see Mr. Rossi watching with a mixture of pride and astonishment. She didn't see Angelo's knowing smile or the tears gathering in the elderly woman's eyes. She saw only the music in her mind, felt only the connection between her hands and the keys, heard only the beautiful sounds filling the space around her. For these few minutes, she was not a waitress being mocked by wealthy customers. She was simply a musician, doing what she had been born to do. As she played the final gentle notes of the piece, letting them fade into silence, Lily kept her eyes closed for a moment longer, reluctant to break the spell. When she finally looked up, she was startled by what she saw. The entire restaurant was watching her, not with mockery or even mere politeness, but with genuine appreciation. Several people had tears in their eyes. The elderly couple was holding hands, smiling at her with something like pride, as if she were their own granddaughter. And the tech executives? They sat in stunned silence, wine glasses forgotten, their earlier behavior thrown into sharp relief by this unexpected revelation. The restaurant remained perfectly quiet for one extended moment. Then the elderly man began to applaud. His wife joined him, then another table and another, until the room filled with the sound of clapping hands and murmured expressions of astonishment and appreciation. Lily felt heat rise to her cheeks again, but this time it wasn't from embarrassment or anger. It was something else entirely, a feeling she had almost forgotten. The feeling of being seen, truly seen, for who she was beneath the surface. The salt and pepper-haired man's mouth hung slightly open. The woman with the bob haircut was staring at her as if seeing her for the first time. The quiet man who had been on his phone all night was recording the applause with a look of wonder on his face. Mr. Rossi approached the piano, his face alight with something that looked like inspiration. "Lily," he said quietly, "would you consider playing another?" Lily blinked in surprise at Mr. Rossi's request to play another piece. The applause still echoed through the restaurant, warm and genuine in a way that made her heart beat faster. She hadn't expected this, hadn't expected any of this when she'd come to work today. "Another?" she asked softly, her fingers still resting lightly on the keys. Mr. Rossi nodded, his eyes bright with excitement. "Please, if you're willing." Lily glanced around the restaurant. The elderly couple was beaming at her. Angelo and the other staff had paused their work to listen. Even the kitchen crew had emerged to witness what was happening. And the tech executives? They sat in stunned silence, their earlier mockery replaced by expressions ranging from surprise to embarrassment. The salt and pepper-haired man caught her eye and quickly looked away, as if unable to hold her gaze. Something shifted inside Lily. The nervousness that had gripped her before playing was fading, replaced by a feeling she had almost forgotten. Confidence in her own abilities and her own worth. Years ago, before life had forced her to change course, she had lived for moments like this. "All right," she said, straightening her posture on the bench. "One more." This time she chose Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Unlike the gentle dreaminess of Debussy, this piece would show more range and emotion. As her fingers began to dance across the keys, she felt herself fully surrendering to the music. The nocturne began with a flowing melody that seemed to tell a story, wistful yet hopeful, complex yet accessible. Lily leaned into the emotional core of the piece, letting her body sway slightly with the rhythm. Her hands moved with increasing assurance, finding the perfect touch for each note, each phrase. The restaurant remained utterly silent except for the sound of the piano. Servers stood motionless, meals cooled untouched, Conversations remained paused. It was as if the entire room was holding its breath, witnessing something unexpected and precious. As Lily played, memories flowed through her, the countless hours of practice throughout her childhood, her first recital at age 8, how her knees had trembled as she walked to the stage, the joy on her mother's face when she'd been accepted to Eastman on scholarship, the heartbreak of walking away from that dream to care for her family. These memories infused her playing with a depth of feeling that technical skill alone couldn't provide. Chopin had written this music nearly 2 centuries ago, but through Lily's hands it felt alive and immediate, speaking directly to everyone who listened. In the middle section, where the piece grows more intense, Lily didn't hold back. Her fingers flew across the keyboard with precision and passion, building to a crescendo that seemed to fill every corner of the restaurant. Then, just as masterfully, she brought the music back to its gentle, reflective conclusion, the final notes hanging in the air like a lingering question. When she finished, the silence held for a moment longer. Then came the applause, louder this time, accompanied by exclamations of bravo and magnificent. People rose to their feet, napkins forgotten in laps, meals left unfinished. The elderly gentleman who had been celebrating his anniversary approached, the piano, his wife at his side. "Young lady," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "that was extraordinary. Truly extraordinary." His wife nodded agreement. "You play with such heart, like you're telling your own story through the music." Lily smiled, feeling a flush of pleasure at their words. "Thank you. That means a lot." Mr. Rossi stood nearby, watching with an expression that mingled amazement with what looked like calculation. The wheels were clearly turning in his mind. "Lily," he said when the applause had died down, "would you consider playing for the remainder of the evening? As our pianist? I would pay you, of course." He named a figure that made her eyes widen slightly, more than she would make in tips for the entire night. Before she could answer, a voice spoke from behind them. "She's worth twice that." Lily turned to see the quiet executive who had been on his phone most of the night. He had approached the piano area without her noticing. "I'm sorry?" Mr. Rossi asked, confusion evident in his tone. "I said she's worth twice what you just offered." The man extended his hand to Lily. "I'm David Chen, artistic director for the City Symphony, and you have a remarkable gift." Lily felt as if the floor had dropped away beneath her. The City Symphony? She had dreamed of playing with them once, before her life had taken its unexpected turn. "Thank you," she managed, shaking his hand automatically. "But I'm just a classically trained pianist with exceptional technique and emotional depth," he finished for her. "Where did you study? Juilliard? Curtis?" "Eastman," she said softly. "But I didn't finish. Family circumstances." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Life happens, but talent like yours shouldn't be serving dinner rolls, it should be shared." From the corner of her eye, Lily could see the rest of the tech executives watching this exchange with expressions ranging from confusion to disbelief. The woman with the bob haircut whispered something to the salt and pepper-haired man, who frowned and shook his head. David pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. "We should talk. The symphony has a young artist program, and we're always looking for talent for our community outreach concerts." Lily took the card, her fingers trembling slightly. Thank you. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll call me on Monday," he replied with a warm smile, "and that you'll play something else now. The restaurant isn't ready for you to stop." Indeed, people at several tables were watching expectantly, hoping for more music. The elderly couple had returned to their seats but were clearly waiting for another performance. Mr. Rossi touched her shoulder gently. "Lily, finish your shift at the piano, not carrying trays, please. I think everyone would prefer that." She nodded, still processing everything that was happening. "All right, but let me change first." She gestured at her server's uniform, with its small wine stain from earlier. "If I'm going to be your pianist tonight, I should look the part." "Of course," Mr. Rossi agreed. "Take your time." In the employee break room, Lily found her street clothes in her locker, a simple black dress she had worn to work that morning, planning to change before her shift. Nothing fancy, but better than a server's uniform for playing piano. As she changed, her mind raced with possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider in years. The business card in her pocket felt like it weighed 100 pounds, heavy with potential, with alternate futures suddenly within reach. Angelo knocked on the door. "You okay in there? Everyone's waiting." "Coming," she called, quickly smoothing her dress and checking her appearance in the small mirror. The woman who looked back at her seemed different somehow, standing taller, eyes brighter. When she returned to the dining room, she noticed the tech executives huddled in conversation. The salt and pepper-haired man glanced up as she passed, then looked quickly away again. The bob-haired woman, however, stepped into her path. "Hey," she said, her earlier mockery replaced by awkward contrition. "I owe you an apology, we all do. We were inappropriate earlier." Lily paused, studying the woman's face. The apology seemed genuine, if uncomfortable. "Thank you," she said simply. "I appreciate that." The woman hesitated, then added, "For what?" "It's worth you play beautifully. Really beautifully." "Thank you," Lily said again with a small smile. Then she continued toward the piano, where her new audience waited. As she took her seat at the bench again, adjusting it slightly, a different kind of nervousness fluttered in her stomach. This wasn't just about playing a song or two anymore. This was about reclaiming a part of herself she had set aside, perhaps for too long. She placed her hands on the keys and began to play Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor. The piece started, with dramatic, forceful chords that immediately commanded attention, then transitioned into a middle section of lyrical beauty before returning to its powerful conclusion. It was technically challenging, much more so than her previous selections, but Lily's fingers remembered. Years of early morning practice sessions before work, of playing through exhaustion and disappointment, had kept her skills sharp even when no one was listening. As she played, she became aware of David Chen watching intently, nodding occasionally as if confirming something to himself. She saw Mr. Rossi beaming with pride, as if he'd discovered her talent rather than simply benefiting from it. She noticed other diners recording her performance on their phones, preserving this unexpected moment to share later. Most surprising was the reaction of the tech executives. They had abandoned their earlier dismissive attitude entirely. Now they watched with expressions of genuine appreciation, even awe. The salt and pepper-haired man, who had been the ringleader of the mockery, sat with his hands folded, his face a study in humility. When Lily finished the Rachmaninoff piece, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. People who had come to Bellini's expecting only a good meal had received something extraordinary instead, a reminder that talent and beauty can be found in unexpected places, that people contain depths invisible to casual observation. Mr. Rossi approached the piano again, smiling broadly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced to the restaurant, "please enjoy the music of our pianist, Lily Chen, the Yamabai." Introduction brought another round of applause. Lily nodded her acknowledgement, a warmth spreading through her chest. Then she turned back to the keys and began to play again. For the next hour, she lost herself in the music, selecting pieces that showcased different styles and emotions, some gentle and introspective, others passionate and dramatic. She played some classical pieces from memory and improvised on others, letting the music flow through her like a current. Between selections, guests approached to express their appreciation. The elderly couple lingered especially long, telling her how her playing had made their anniversary celebration perfect. "Music was how we fell in love," the woman told, her eyes shining with memory. "Hearing you play tonight brought it all back. That feeling of possibility, of life unfolding in unexpected ways." Lily smiled, touched by the woman's words. "Thank you for asking me to play. I might not have otherwise." "Sometimes we all need a little push," the woman replied, patting her hand, "especially to become who we already are." As the evening progressed, Lily noticed the tech executives preparing to leave. They gathered their things, paid their bill, and headed toward the door. But at the last moment, the salt and pepper-haired man detoured to the piano, He waited until she finished her current piece, then cleared his throat awkwardly. "I behaved poorly tonight," he said without preamble. "You deserved better. I'm sorry." Lily nodded, accepting his apology with quiet dignity. "Thank you for saying so." He hesitated, then added, "You're incredibly talented. I hope you'll consider David's offer. The world should hear you play." As he walked away, Lily felt a curious sense of completion. The mockery that had begun the evening had transformed into something entirely different. Respect, perhaps even admiration. She turned back to the piano and began to play again, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. The night was far from over, and for the first time in years the future felt wide open with possibility. 3 months had passed since that unforgettable night at Bellini's restaurant, and Lily Chen's life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined. The seasons had changed from summer to fall, the leaves turning golden and red outside her new practice room at the City Symphony Hall. Her fingers moved confidently over the keys as she prepared for her upcoming recital, the notes of Liszt's La Campanella filling the space around her. "That sounds wonderful," came a voice from the doorway. "But watch the tempo in measure 73, it's rushing just a bit." Lily looked up to see David Chen leaning against the doorframe, his expression warm and encouraging. In the months since their chance meeting, he had become not just her advocate but a trusted mentor. "I felt that too," she admitted, making a small note on her sheet music. "Still working on it." "You'll get it," he said with confidence. "The program is really coming together. How are you feeling about next week?" Next week, her first solo recital in nearly 8 years. The thought still gave her butterflies, though not the paralyzing kind she might have expected. Nervous, she acknowledged. But good nervous. Ready? David nodded approvingly. "The tickets are selling well. We've already had to add extra chairs." Lily smiled, still finding it hard to believe people were paying to hear her play. After that night at Bellini's, things had moved quickly. David had invited her to audition formally for the symphony's Young Artists program. Though she was technically a few years older than their usual participants, her talent and unusual story had convinced the board to make an exception. Her first weeks in the program had been challenging, relearning to practice with professional discipline, working with coaches who pushed her to refine her technique, navigating the politics of the classical music world. But her years of playing in solitude had given her interpretation a unique quality that her instructors valued. "You play like someone who understands life," her primary coach had told her. "That can't be taught." Lily gathered her music, organizing the pages into her folder. "I should head out soon. My shift starts at 5. Though she was now officially affiliated with the symphony, Lily still worked at Bellini's, not as a server, but as their regular weekend pianist. Mr. Rossi had offered her the position the very night of her impromptu performance, and she had gratefully accepted. The regular income helped supplement her modest symphony stipend while she rebuilt her musical career. "Will you be able to make it to the rehearsal tomorrow?" David asked as they walked together down the hallway. "Definitely. I've arranged to swap shifts with Antonio." Her relationship with Bellini's original pianist had evolved into an unexpected friendship. He had been nothing but supportive upon his return, even offering to help her prepare for her symphony audition. As Lily left the symphony hall and walked to the bus stop, she marveled at how different her daily routine had become. Mornings were now dedicated to practice at the symphony, afternoons often filled with coaching sessions or workshops, and evenings spent playing at Bellini's or attending performances by other musicians. It was exhausting at times, but exhilarating too, the kind of exhaustion that came from pursuing something meaningful. The bus arrived, and Lily found a seat by the window. As the city passed by outside, her mind drifted back to that pivotal evening 3 months ago. After the tech executives had left Bellini's, she had continued playing for nearly 2 more hours. The restaurant had stayed open later than usual, with patrons lingering over coffee and dessert, reluctant to leave while the music continued. By the end of the night, her fingers had been tired, but her spirits soaring. Mr. Rossi had approached her as she finally closed the piano lid. "Lily," he'd said, his voice serious, "I've been running this restaurant for 15 years. I've never seen a night like this." The next day, she'd called David Chen, half expecting to get his voicemail or an assistant. Instead, he'd answered immediately, as if he'd been waiting for her call. "I hoped I'd hear from you," he'd said warmly. "When can you come in to play for our committee?" That first audition had been terrifying. Playing in a restaurant was one thing. People were focused on their meals and conversations, the piano providing pleasant background. Playing in a formal audition room with 5 serious-faced judges was entirely different. She'd chosen Bach's Prelude in C minor and a movement from a Beethoven sonata, pieces that showcased both technical ability and emotional range. Her hands had trembled at first, but as the music took over, the nervousness faded. She remembered closing her eyes during one particularly moving passage, completely absorbed in the sound. When she'd finished, there had been a moment of silence before David spoke. "Thank you, Ms. Chen. That was illuminating." She hadn't been able to read his tone, and the other judges' faces remained impassive. She'd left the audition convinced she had failed. The call had come 3 days later. She'd been at her apartment practicing on her humble upright piano when her phone rang. "We'd like to offer you a place in our program," David had said without preamble. "It's not the typical path. You're a few years older than our usual participants, and your training was interrupted. But the committee was unanimous. You have something special, Lily. Something that can't be taught." The memory still brought tears to her eyes. How close she had come to never playing publicly again. If Antonio hadn't been sick that night, if the tech executives hadn't mocked her, if Mr. Rossi hadn't remembered her mentioning she played piano. The bus arrived at her stop, and Lily gathered her things. Bellini's was just around the corner, its familiar facade now representing not just a workplace, but a turning point in her life. As she pushed open the door, the warm scent of Italian cooking greeted her. Several staff members called out hellos as she entered. Her relationship with them had shifted too, no longer just a fellow server, but someone who had reminded them all that dreams could be reclaimed, that life often offered second chances. "There she is," Mr. Rossi greeted her with his usual enthusiasm. "Our star pianist." Lily smiled, still uncomfortable with such praise but learning to accept it graciously. "Hardly a star yet." "Nonsense. We had 3 calls today asking if you were playing. Tonight." He beamed with pride. "People come for the food but stay for the music now." Angelo emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "How was practice today? Ready for the big recital?" Lily had been surprised to learn that Angelo had attended Eastman himself years ago as a composition student, before deciding that cooking was his true passion. That explained how he'd known about her musical background. He'd recognized the subtle signs of classical training in her posture, her hands, the way she talked about music in passing. "Getting there," she replied. "You're still coming, right?" "Wouldn't miss it," he assured her. "Got my ticket the first day they went on sale." As evening approached, Lily changed into the simple black dress that had become her performance attire at Bellini's. She took her place at the piano just as the dinner crowd began to arrive. This evening, like every Friday for the past 3 months, the restaurant was fully booked. Word had spread about the extraordinary pianist at Bellini's, the waitress with the hidden talent who now enchanted diners with her music. As Lily began to play, she noticed a familiar elderly couple being shown to their usual table near the piano. They had returned every week since that first night, becoming not just regular patrons but friends. They always requested the same table, always stayed for her entire performance. "Our anniversary might only come once a year," the woman had explained, "but good music should be enjoyed as often as possible." Tonight they smiled and waved as she played a piece by Schubert that she knew was their favorite. Lily nodded in acknowledgement, her fingers never missing a note. As the evening progressed, Lily's thoughts turned to her upcoming recital. The program included pieces by Bach, Chopin, Liszt, and Rachmaninoff, challenging works that showcased her range as a pianist. The final piece would be her own arrangement of a Debussy composition, a nod to the first piece she had played that transformative night. The symphony had created special programs that included her unusual story, from promising student to waitress to rediscovered talent. David had worried the narrative might overshadow her playing, but Lily had embraced it. Her journey was part of who she was as a musician now, informing her interpretation, giving depth to her performance. Near the end of her shift, as she played a gentle Chopin nocturne, Lily noticed a group of business people being seated at a large table across the restaurant. For a moment, her heart skipped. Were they the same tech executives from that night? But no, these were different faces, though, similarly well-dressed and confident. It struck her then how much her perspective had changed. 3 months ago, she had felt intimidated by such people, diminished by their casual dismissal. Now she played with the quiet confidence of someone who knew her own worth. During her break, Mr. Rossi approached with a small package. "This was left for you earlier today," he explained. The delivery person said it was important. Curious, Lily opened the package to find a vintage music box and a note. The handwriting was unfamiliar. "Miss Chen," the note read, "you won't remember me, but I was at Bellini's the night you first played. I was with the tech company group that behaved so poorly. I wanted you to know that your music changed something in me that evening. I've enclosed a family heirloom that deserves someone who truly appreciates music. My grandmother was a pianist in China before the revolution forced her to flee. She would have wanted you to have this. Looking forward to your recital next week. With admiration and apology." It was signed simply, "A listener." Lily opened the music box carefully. Inside was an exquisite carved jade figure of a woman at a piano. When wound, it played a delicate rendition of Debussy's Clair de Lune, the very piece she had first performed at Bellini's. Tears welled in her eyes. The music box was clearly valuable, clearly meaningful to its previous owner. That someone would part with such a treasure because of how her playing had affected them was deeply moving. As she returned to the piano for her final set of the evening, Lily carried this new knowledge with her, that music could transform not just the performer, but the listener too. That one moment of courage could alter the course of many lives. She placed her hands on the keys and began to play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, losing herself in its sweeping emotion. As the music filled the restaurant, she felt a profound sense of rightness, of having found her way back to herself. The path ahead would not be easy. Building a musical career in her late 20s, without the usual credentials or connections, would require determination and resilience. There would be skeptics and setbacks, moments of doubt and difficulty. But as her fingers danced across the keys, bringing beauty into the world note by note, Lily knew with certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. The journey that had begun with mockery had led to this. Not just a return to music, but a deeper understanding of its power to reveal the truth of who we are and who we might become.